on Northwest Politics, a lawmaker's legacy honored in brick and mortar. Pacific University renovating a building in honor of a man once called the most powerful congressman in Oregon. We sit down with native Portlander Les AuCoin for his take on the state of politics in Oregon and the nation. And former Multnomah County Commissioner Loretta Smith in a crowded field looking to lead Portland in its newly formed city council. Eye on Northwest Politics starts now. Thanks for joining us. This is Eye on Northwest Politics. I'm Ken Body. Let's get right to your top political headlines. Multnomah County's deflection program is still off to a slow start. 1 week ago, possessing small amounts of hard drugs became a crime in Oregon. People caught with small amounts of drugs like meth or fentanyl are given the choice of treatment or jail. Well, in a briefing, leaders admitted that only about half of those choosing deflection were able to get immediate help. A deflection center is expected to open next month in southeast Portland. Three major candidates for Portland mayor talking about their plans to attract businesses back to Portland. Renee Gonzalez, Carmen Rubio, and businessman Keith Wilson attended the event on Thursday. Topics included open drug use and homelessness. The forum was hosted by the Columbia Corridor Association. For the first time, this November's winner will be picked using ranked choice voting. And if you are in Portland, get ready for a lengthy ballot this November. The final list of candidates has now been certified with 19 people running for mayor. City council races even more crowded. 98 city council candidates total, with 30 candidates on the ballot in 3 of the newly formed districts. In total, 118 candidates will appear on the city ballot. It will be ranked choice voting, so voters will pick their top 6 candidates for each city council race. And the race for Washington's 3rd congressional district is heating up between incumbent Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez and Republican challenger Joe Kent. They've agreed to a series of debates, including one here on Coin. The first will be October 2nd as part of the Cowlitz Civil Dialogue Project. Coin 6 will host another on October 14th, and I'll moderate that one. On September 27th, former Oregon Congressman Les AuCoin will officially have a building named after him at Pacific University in Forest Grove. The newly renovated Les AuCoin Hall honors the legacy of the Pacific University graduate class of 1969. A native Portlander, AuCoin earned his degree in journalism from Pacific University, which is celebrating its 175th anniversary this year. Les AuCoin spent 18 years in Congress, starting in 1975 as the first Democrat to win in Oregon's 1st congressional district, a seat the Democrats have held ever since. That seat is currently held by Suzanne Bonamici. Former Congressman AuCoin, now 81, has some thoughts on the current state of politics in America and in Oregon. He joins us now by Zoom. Les AuCoin, thanks for joining us on Eye on Northwest Politics.
Thanks, Nick. Ken. It's wonderful to be here. Good to see you.
What does it mean to have this building named after you at Pacific University?
Well, for a recovering politician, it feels pretty good. And I guess I'm very grateful that the Board of Trustees, in making the decision to do this, had not looked at my grade point average. But all seriousness, it's a huge honor, and my family and I are over the moon.
You also turned your records and papers over to Pacific University. What do you hope students learn from them?
Well, I hope they learn more about the civic literacy, to understand how government should work, about compromise, and those kinds of things. And also to understand that optimism is not prediction, it's orientation. It's trying your best to make the world better, even if you know you may fail. And even if you do fail, you have worked as hard as you can in the right direction, and you've branded your life in that way. And also just civic literacy. We need to understand that compromise really is important. Without it, what we end up having is dictatorial government, where somebody stamps their feet, makes it happen, and we're all too close to that today, I think. And so these are the kinds of values I hope are continue to be taught in higher education writ large, and also at my alma mater.
Well, you talk about the spirit of compromise. Bipartisanship seems to be a lost art, both nationally and here in the state of Oregon. What do you think when you see this level of political polarization?
It's heartbreaking. What we're watching today is a conflict between hope and hate. I remember back in the day, starting to get kind of dicey back then, 30 years ago. But there was a time when John Kasich of Ohio, who ultimately ran for president on the Republican ticket, very conservative guy, we would debate, he on military issues, he being very conservative. We'd fought over the MX missile, the Star Wars, and we fight, rhetorically very hard. After the debate was over, he would come over to my side of the aisle, or I on his, and we would say to each other, "Hey, John," or Les, "you forgot in that debate A, B, C." And I remember saying, "No, John, you forgot X, Y, Z." And I remember John once saying, "I'll get back to you tomorrow." And he did. And I used to do the same. It was a kind of a dialogue. Right now, people don't even like to be seen, R's and D's, in the same lunchroom together. And that needs to be fixed. And rather than opting out, as a lot of voters might be tempted to do, given all the stuff that's going on, my advice is don't opt out and let things get worse. Make the best choice available to you and help it not get as bad, and then it will get better. It has to be the people's choice. And so I feel very strongly about that.
During your career, you fought for reproductive rights and the abortion debate raging again, especially after the Supreme Court's Dodd decision overturning Roe v. Wade. Why do you think we're still fighting this battle in 2024?
Well, the MAGA Republicans have caused that to be. We've had Supreme Court justices, the last one appointed by Trump, just months before he was going to leave the office. And we have a 6-3 majority for MAGA Republicans and anti-abortion advocates. They do not reflect the American will. 63% of Americans, if not more, support a woman's right to make choices within certain parameters. And what we need are people who will understand that. In the presidential race, this is a key thing, where Kamala Harris is running against Donald Trump, who created that 6-3 anti-choice majority, and it's not going to get better if he's returned to a second term. So this is extremely important. This is the first time in a long time that rights have been removed from the American people that were established and in place for almost 50 years.
What's your take on President Biden dropping out of the race and Kamala Harris is the Democratic presidential nominee now?
I know Joe. We were very close friends. I met him in the Senate office to talk about legislation on arms control and stuff. Met him in his office in the White House. I love the guy. I was part of his campaign in 1988. But I saw that first debate, and his time was up. And it killed me to say this, but I joined about 15 other former members of Congress from my class and urged him in an open letter to step aside. It was for the country. He was brave and did it, and the country should reward him because it also saved his heritage. He will always be remembered for a legacy that he created, and it would have been destroyed if he had stayed on and tanked to this election, and he would have, I think.
During the Reagan administration, you wrote the ban to stop oil exploration off the Pacific Coast outer continental shelf. And since then, the U.S. has significantly increased its domestic oil production. Are we on the right track when it comes to energy independence in America?
No, I don't think so. I think we're producing more of the fossil fuels, but in our future, we're going to reach the end of oil. And rather than hastening that day as a people, we ought to be moving away from it completely. I think we need more emphasis on solar, more emphasis on renewable resources, and that should be our plan rather than more fossil fuels. So I think that ban should stay in place, and I pass that over the objection of the Reagan administration and James Watt. Renewables are our future.
You were also instrumental in the federal government recognizing the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. How does that rank among your political achievements?
Ken, that's if you're lucky enough and privileged enough to be in public office, what you want to do is leave a footprint behind if you can for good, that creates some good for real people. And of all the things I accomplished, and it's a long list, certainly not going to bore you with it or your listeners, but one of them, that one is one of the most important to me. And Native Americans talk about the seventh generation. What they mean by that are steps that you take today that will affect generations to come ad infinitum. And that one does. That tribe went from abject poverty when I first ran for office. And now, with its reservation restored, with its tribal identity back, with a gaming compact, it has become one of the most economically successful tribes in the Northwest. It's got elder housing, it's got savings plans, it's got scholarships. It really, and that's going to be enjoyed, and people are going to benefit from it for generations to come. It's very, very important to me.
Mr. AuCoin, we've got about a minute left, but I do want to mention this. In 2019, you wrote your political memoir, Catch and Release in Oregon Life and Politics. How do you generally look back on your time in politics, and what do you hope is the main takeaway from what you wrote in the book?
I think my take is what a privilege it was for me. I grew up as a fatherless son in Redmond, Oregon. No one in my family went to high school. I went to college. I was the first male in my extended family to graduate from high school, and I got a degree, and I ended up in the Congress of the United States. I hope people get some inspiration from that and understand that that's the promise of this country. So long as we preserve what this country is and allow it to be the free society that it is, and we have to preserve it, because it can change. And one of the questions in this race today for president is, what kind of a country do we want? We have some dictatorial ideas floating around, and we need to resist them.
Les AuCoin, thank you for joining Eye on Northwest Politics, and it's good to see you again.
Thank you, Ken. Good to see you.
Next, a familiar face in local politics is back. Former Multnomah County Commissioner Loretta Smith, running again for a seat on Portland City Council. We talk about her reasons for running now, her priorities, and how the new form of city government could change things. Our conversation right after the break.